what we thought was for those who haven't had much to do with AFSA before, we just thought we'd give you a broad overview in terms of what AFSA is about, and within the context, obviously, of the South Asian Heritage Month this month. So I'm just going to share with you a few slides. Now, Ajakta will probably be able to tell the story better than me, but AFSA came about as a result of I think there was 4 or 5 Asian firefighters in London who came together because one of the things they realised was there wasn't enough of people in London Fire Brigade who looked like them at a time where, you know, the population of London, which at the moment is around about 30% from a BME background. So they thought, let's get together, and they all met up in a pub in London and thought, what can we do? So from the hard work of half a dozen Asian firefighters was the birth of London AFSA. And since 2003, with in particular the support of Ajakta, who came on board, AFSA went national. And at the moment, we have got 46 corporate members. So 46 fire and rescue services are corporate members of AFSA, and we work with them to help them around the whole area around diversity and inclusion. So a lot of people often ask in terms of how does AFSA work? And we always talk to them about the AFSA way, which is very much around, as friends, we give fire and rescue service that nudge in terms of, you know, these are the kind of things that's on the horizon in terms of legislation, good practice, and these are the kind of things that you should be thinking about. So a lot of you will have seen our weekly newsletter that we do, and that's one way of where we keep our members informed. Secondly, we also provide proactive support. So at the moment, we're working with a few fire and rescue services in terms of the whole area around how to understand Black Lives Matter better. And we also do our 2 national conferences a year where we bring together fire and rescue services and give them the opportunity to hear from the latest research and good practice. We're very much around not hitting people over the head, but very much around working with people, working with people who within the service to hopefully help them in terms of what Joy was saying a bit earlier around creating culture change within their organisation. Okay. In terms of what AFSA is about, it's very much a membership-led organisation. We very much, on a regular basis, listen to yourselves and we listen to some of the key things that are challenging you and in terms of trying to help you going forward. Our values are very much based around the values of the Fire and Rescue Service, which is around understanding diverse communities better, understanding people better, working together as a collective, because we feel working together we can get a lot of things done quickly and better. Recognising diverse communities are widely dispersed all over the country, and how can we support fire and rescue services understand diverse communities better. We're big on continuous improvement. You know, we on a regular basis say, you know, diversity inclusion, it's a journey, it's not a sprint. You know, so we're very much around incremental change and supporting fire and rescue services. And our mission is very much like a lot of fire and rescue services, which is very much around helping fire and rescue services deliver the best services, have the best leadership that's diverse, that's confident and progressive around the whole diversity and inclusion agenda. So our strategic objectives, what I will do after this session is I will send you all our business plan, which will give you a lot more detail around these 4 areas. But what we do is we're very big on trying to influence the agenda. So in terms of the Home Office, the National Fire Chiefs Council and others, to make sure that they're aware of diversity inclusion when it comes to equalities, governance and things like that. We're the voice of the Fire and Rescue Service. We listen to what you've got to say and we relay that to government and others. And as I said, we're very much around supporting fire and rescue services, and our key mantra is to try to increase our membership on a regular basis. So these are the kind of things that we've developed over the years, and they're all available on our AFSA website. They're all free. You can either download, etc. Feel free to do so. One of the first things we developed, and this must be about 10, 15 years ago now, was a community handbook, which provides a brief overview of all the different cultures and religions within the UK. We update our Afsa Ramadan booklet every year. The Smoke and Mirrors, that's one of our biggest achievements in terms of looking at the whole area around positive action and where the Fire and Rescue Service is and where it should be, and it gives good pointers to Fire and Rescue Service in terms of going forward. Okay, and the others are some various briefing documents that we've developed over the years. We're big on national conferences. We were going to hold a conference in July and also December this year, but because of COVID, we've replaced them with webinars. But next year, we've already got 2 national conferences lined up. And again, I will be sending you further details after this meeting. We are also very big on charity. We do regular charity efforts at our national conferences, but also other things such as the London Bridges Walk. So these are just some of the examples of organisations that we've supported over the year, including Apnagar in Birmingham, and on the other side, where you'll see some people administering first aid, that involved Dennis Moss and his team, who go over to India every year and deliver first aid free training in poor villages in India. So these are again just some regional events that we've supported over the years. Last year we supported a regional event in Suffolk, and previously we were going to do it in West Sussex this year, but because we had to cancel, but that's been rearranged till next March. And as members of AFSA, you have free access to some of these development events. Okay. We're also big on partnerships. So the event on your left here around promoting excellence in pastoral, spiritual and religious support, that's been done in partnership with the NHS, the prison service, and also the police as well. And this event is going to be on the 26th of July next year, I believe, yeah. And again, I'll send you some details for you to book your places. Okay. And this is one of my personal favourites. It's our quarterly inclusion magazine, which we published for the first time earlier this year. The next edition will be available, will be sent to you all at the end of August. But again, it's a good opportunity to share all the good practice that's going on within the Fire and Rescue Service, and we collate a series of articles within this publication. And again, previous versions are on our website. Okay, so that's very much a superficial top overview of who we are.
And you must be thinking, how do you do that? We do that with you, with your support. And we do that with our AFSA pledge. And our AFSA pledge is, I cannot do everything, but there's something that I can do, I will do. Which means that those of you younger members who've got young children and families to look after, you may only be able to come to the conference. We respect you for that. Some of you may only be able to come to the Bridges Walk to do a charity walk. We respect you for that. Others like you may be boring like me and Mohammed Yogi, and we'll do everything we can in every spare hour we've got. I hope you respect that. And we dig out old shirts that we used to wear when we were slimmer of the AFSA walks. That's just to prove that legacy is what we leave with AFSA. And we'll talk about the fundraising with Dennis when he comes on. So first, I want to introduce Rajiv Kang, who is our newest member in Devon and Somerset. And my first question to Rajiv is just talk us about the richness of the diversity and the cultures you've experienced.
So basically, I was my origin is Punjabi. I was born in Punjab, North India, and I'm a Sikh.
So I will interrupt occasionally. Where in Punjab? Remember those old conversations your dad was, "Kede pind, tere dad da na ki hai?" What did Danaki Siga?
Yeah. So in Hoshiarpur, I come from Hoshiarpur, so quite north. But when I was a baby, we moved to Germany. So I was brought up in Germany up to the age of like uni. I finished my uni in Germany. So that was my second culture, but I was brought up in a Punjabi household. So we had to speak Punjabi. We had Punjabi food, we had Punjabi festivals, but there was a mix of German in there as well because all my friends were German. The school I went to, there were no Asians or no ethnic minority apart from myself. Up to A-levels. And then after uni, I came here, moved to London, outskirts of London. And so I have experienced the British culture in the same way as well. So which culture
Tell us
do you
about
want
the
me to
three
talk about?
cultures. Rajiv, talk to us about your favourite parts of Punjabi culture. Then talk to us about your favourite parts of the integration of Punjabi culture and German culture, and then overlay that on the culture and how it's impacted you in Britain.
The favorite parts of Punjabi culture is just everything around, like the festivals, the colors, the food, the spices, and the teachings of my religion. Although I don't practice it like actively, but I do believe in the teachings because in Sikhism, equality is right at the forefront of everything. So everyone is seen as a human. It doesn't matter which race, religion, or where they come from. You're just the same, and you're welcomed into the culture, the society. And example is like the langar service, the free food, where you share food at the same level with everyone. Doesn't matter if you're poor or rich, or if you're Hindu or Sikh or Muslim or Christian, it doesn't matter at all. You're just there as a human being. So this is what I love about my heritage. About the German culture, what I love about this, everything is very systematically done. Everything is done, organized properly. People follow rules. It's one step at a time, and it's not a chaos. So this is what I learned there, and this is how my work ethics are. So you do the work that you're given to the best of your capabilities that you can, and don't try to find excuses, for example. About when I came to Britain, what I noticed is the difference. Here, people are more tolerant. There's more multicultural events happening, which I didn't miss them in Germany because I didn't know they exist until I came here. So, because if you don't know about something, you don't miss it. But coming here, you just get sucked into this, all these different religions and cultures living side by side. Whereas in Germany, because the numbers are less, it was a little bit difficult to, you were treated fine, you were treated equally, but you were just you. It wasn't like, okay, you are different, you're just you. Whereas here, you are different, but you're welcomed to be different as well. So that's a good thing I like about Britain. So you're encouraged to follow your heritage.
Yeah. Okay, that's excellent. Just tell us about your favourite part of the Asian culture.
The community feel. I think that's what because I think every human needs an anchor point, you can say.
Yeah.
So and I think in Asian culture, that's quite big. So you have the community to fall back into, and you know that you will be put back on your feet should you fail. So that's what I like about the Punjabi and the Asian culture. It's just the feel of being welcomed.
So we'll move to Salma Parmak. Please introduce yourself and your brigade, your role, but then move smoothly into those first questions about your background and your culture.
Wow, thank you very much. I didn't expect this today. So I'm Salima Parmak. I'm the Facilities and Environmental Manager for Dorset and Wiltshire Fire and Rescue Service. Thank you for the invitation, Danielle. We'll speak later on that.
That's the way.
Regards to the questions that you asked and towards Raja, I completely echo that. So my background is I'm first generation Moroccan. My parents came here in the 60s. I think their intention, like with most first generation, second generation, the intention was just for a few years and to go back home, as they call it. That clearly didn't happen. So what was the question? What do I Remind me. Oh, sorry, I can't hear you.
Your background, your culture, your family's culture, what are you proud of? What do you celebrate?
Oh, massively. So I'm extremely proud of my parents and their achievements themselves when they first came here in terms of how they adapted. And I look up to that massively with huge respect. My mother was 16 when she came here, not a word of English. My father, 23, very young and naive. I'm highly educated, mother illiterate. I'm extremely proud of what they've achieved and managed to bring up 9 children as a result of that. In terms of cultural values, what they bring as a Muslim and in Islam, Ramadan is obviously a big favorite. Eid, massively. As you can appreciate, we are very, we were brought up to be very, we weren't, money wasn't a huge thing. They worked and were very proud. They held down 3 jobs and they worked extremely hard through that. So Ramadan and Eid, massively important to me, and I still hold those values and bring them down to my children. I'm not an extremely practicing Muslim myself, but I do appreciate and respect those values. We're all very local. And I hold those values dearly with my children too. In terms of the integration, so I studied in this country, was born here, studied my whole education here, widely traveled throughout Europe and Africa. What I value about the British culture, Christmas, I'd say. And echoing what Raji said, how systematically their approach is, how organized it is. And our Eids tend to be slightly chaotic, and the invitation, and it's very short notice as well. It's not uncommon to get an invitation. You're expected round this evening at 7 o'clock and bring everybody. Those kind of phone calls and expectations and demands. The respect as well, I find in Islam and within our culture. And how that's open to the wider community. So I live in Trowbridge, which is quite a small town in Wiltshire. It's a county town of Wiltshire. We have 1 mosque, and that's open to everybody. And I like that. And I've seen a lot of change in the last 15 years and how that's welcoming. Like I said, I'm Moroccan background. So we are the 2nd largest Moroccan community outside one of the Oujda, which is a city bordering Algeria and Morocco. And we are the 2nd largest community outside of that here in Trowbridge. So that's always been quite close to me as well.
So Salma, one of the things I don't want anybody on this page to apologize about is that not a practicing Muslim or a practicing Sikh. I'm not a practicing Sikh. I perfected the art of drinking alcohol, eating meat, but still staying true to the values that my grandmother taught me, staying true to the values of what the scriptures say. So I think you can be a person of faith, but don't need to practice it in the way that some people would like you to practice it. So I think you both shine through in your values that your parents are giving you. So my final question to you, Salma, before I come back to you later, will be, I'm making a lazy assumption. You've been back to Morocco, yeah? You've still got family there? So
yeah,
what is it that you miss about Morocco once you've been there and you come back? What is so great about Morocco itself?
I think it's the hospitality, the people, the language, food, and the humbleness.
Yeah.
They're very, very humble. Yeah.
Brilliant. We've done these talks because I'm also a chair of a mental health trust. We've done these talks with our Asian nursing and medical staff. And, the thing that I've learned the most is about the Pakistani culture and the beauty of the country of Kashmir and the richness, because this country's media paints that country as if it's a constant war. And we've all made a commitment in my trust that we want to go and see Pakistan, the true Pakistan, not the Pakistan that's presented to us on the TV. Yeah. So let's go to Dennis Moss, the oldest man on the page. This is getting boring. Nobody's laughing anymore. So the question to you is clearly, Dennis Moss, the oldest paramedic in the country and the first Asian paramedic in the country. And you were also at Aberfam, which that's how long ago. Many people weren't even born when Aberfam happened. But tell us about your rich culture, your history, and your pride in your culture.
Okay. Yeah, as everybody knows, my name is Dennis Moss. I was born in India. I'm an Anglo-Indian, and the Anglo-Indian culture is very similar to the Asian culture and the values that they have as well. But also the fact that we are practicing Christians and Catholics. I grew up as an altar boy, served Mass on Sundays as well. and also helped to give rations out to the poor people who used to come out to church as well. My family moved to the UK sometime in the 60s, and we've actually learned to adopt and just get on with life. That was in this country at that time for us anyway. And I joined the ambulance service when I was quite young, obviously after going to the Aberfan disaster. I joined the ambulance service when I was quite young. I was the first Asian ambulance person on the job and the first paramedic as well. But obviously things were slightly different to what it is now. I think it's more acceptable now than we used to be in the past. So what I don't want to do is go back and talk about the past, that it had been bad just at those days. My parents put up with it. I had to put up with it as well. But I think things have changed a lot. I've been a paramedic, and that's close to my heart, being a paramedic with the ambulance service. But I also retired many years ago, 2016, and I was asked to come back. But the reason I went back to the ambulance service, one is because obviously I enjoy doing the job that I do. Secondly, was to try and help the trust to try and promote more equality and have a more diverse workforce within the ambulance service. Because obviously being the first one made it difficult, and the problem that I'd been to, I wanted to make that change for the trust as well. So that's really helped me to push things forward. And we have started to make progress as well within the ambulance service. Progress in as much that we've actually started to recruit more people. It's nice to see more Asian people in the ambulance service. And the numbers have increased for what it used to be in the past. We're also working closely with the Swansea University now. I've developed a little program for Swansea Uni where we're going to start delivering training at Swansea Uni for cultural awareness and religious issues as well, so that the paramedics coming into onto the Swansea University course will have some understanding about the different cultures and religions that are out there in the community. They've also accepted the fact that we'll make some changes from the panel that they have for the interviews as well, because at the moment the panel is not diverse, so they've accepted that as well. So one of my jobs is to look for somebody suitable who can sit on those panels, and also give people the confidence when they come up there to say that they're not on their own. We can see someone else with us as well. So they've accepted the fact that we can actually make those changes. So there's still discussion going on with people from the community to see who we can actually take there to deliver the training. It's going to be done as from, I think it's May now. It's supposed to be starting September, but it's not going to be starting from May. And then every year after that, there will be some training from the Muslims, Hindus.
So, Dennis, tell us a little bit about being a groundbreaker. We've got probably our first Moroccan member of the fire service. What was it like being the first Asian black paramedic in Wales? I mean, Welsh isn't very diverse itself. Talk us through the positive aspects of it, and then maybe we'll talk about the challenges.
Okay, it's very difficult to talk about the positive side without even talking about the negative. But from my point of view, was having to live through the problems and having to accept the problems that was there to be accepted. So that was one hurdle I had to overcome, and it wasn't easy. So whatever they were saying to you, I just had to accept it. But having overcome that, they started to accept me more, and therefore it became like a relationship between the staff there and myself. Even though the promotion aspects of the ambulance service was very bad, because it was impossible to get any sort of promotion within the ambulance service, especially if you're from a different background, because you didn't fit the criteria that they were looking for, only because of your background really. So that was the aspect of it.
So Dennis, let me just interrupt you for a second, Dennis. Dennis, without good role models, good allies, people who support you, we could not have got to where we have. Tell us a bit about those individuals within the ambulance service in Wales that lifted you and supported you in your hours of need. What was special about them? Because we talk about nowadays reverse mentoring and coaching and championing. There were people doing that without even any of those tools. So who were the people that inspired you within the ambulance service from a white background that were great allies to you?
The one person I have to talk about who's really encouraged me after that conversation was our chief exec, out of all the chief execs, was Tracy Mile. Tracy Mile actually seen the value of things
Yeah.
and the changes that can happen. So we started to work together closely to make those changes. One of the changes that we've made actually already in the trust, and that's to change the trust board makeup. Because of Tracy, this just happened. Otherwise, it would never be possible. So we changed the trust board makeup. So we've actually got a Sikh as a non-exec on the trust board for the first time. And it was Tracy Mile really that inspired me and gave me the encouragement.
But Dennis, that's great. I mean, that's what we're doing here. We're learning that, you know, when you've got great leaders can make change. You had years of struggle of getting diversity, and Tracy comes along as chief exec, recognizes it, and changes the makeup of the board, and other things start to happen. So let's move on, Dennis, to what inspired you to do the work in India, and what have been the benefits of India, where you go every 2 years and you take firefighters with you. This is also an advert, by the way, to people listening. If you wish to join Dennis and his team, they go every 2 years. They go to Amritsar and teach first aid to the people doing service there. And then they go to a school in Bihar, one of the poorest areas of India. So Dennis, tell us about your vision and your aspirations and what you do around the work in India and first aid.
Okay, it started many years ago with the help of AFSA as well, because AFSA we put some water pumps in there, and AFSA was funding the water pumps. So I would go out there regularly and and establish some water pumps in different parts of the villages. But it was during that time that there was an incident that took place in the school where the child had choked while having his meal break. So that came to my attention, and I felt that I think we could do something there and find out exactly what went on. So I approached the school. What they said to me was they couldn't do anything for the child because they didn't have the knowledge to do anything. So I offered the chance of them learning first aid. So this was taken up by a number of schools, and then we followed that through. Then I got a team together, including people from the fire service, people from London Ambulance Service, people from Bristol Ambulance Service, and also from West Midlands and from Wales. And we put a team together. We fundraise for stuff that we need to buy, and AFSA also supports that too. And we go out there and we do a training. So we do a training actually in places like Amritsar, Jalandhar, and Jamshedpur. We were looking at Calcutta as the next step as well, because I've been approached by people from the Hindu community.
Excellent.
Who's asked me
Dennis, just pause for a second, because one of your sons, Wayne McCollin, is about to leave, and I don't want Wayne McCollin to leave until he's shown his picture as your son. And also, Wayne, you've been to India. Tell us about what you learned about the culture of India in your recent trip to India before you leave. Are you still here, Wayne?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Please.
Yeah.
Image, please. This is my twin brother.
Hang on, I have to switch the lights on. Oh.
He's always in the dark.
Where are we? There we go. Is the house tidy?
That's great. So Wayne McCollin, my twin brother, over to you.
What's the question?
The question is, when you went to India, what was the cultural shock to you as a Bayesian about India, and what did you learn from that trip?
Well, obviously my experiences have been reared in Birmingham, in the city of Birmingham, that exposed me to all the cultures that were there. So I have fond recollections of Santokh Singh, who was a great friend of mine at Bolton Road Primary School. And then being really exposed to the Punjabi culture through yourself many years later. So although I sort of drifted in and out of homes in the past, it was that invitation to be part of your family which really exposed me to what certainly the Punjabi part of the South Asian culture was all about. And it doesn't differ that greatly from all the other cultures I've experienced since then. The invitation to go to India, and you say recently, we're talking about 2014, so we're nearly seven years down the line.
That's yesterday in our lifetime.
But the invite Well, was there really an invite? I guess I knew I had to go at some point because it's always been part of the planning. So invites, you know, and whatever. We ended up there, and in terms of expectations, you know, having been born and had my formative years in the Caribbean, where there is this vast gulf between the haves and the have-nots. To go to India, I sort of half expected something similar, but I wasn't fully prepared for how big that gulf really is. So it was great being part of a group of Indo-Europeans, I guess, traveling the country and staying in our 3- and 4-star hotels and enjoying the luxuries which go with that. But then having to make those journeys between those venues and seeing the two sides of India as we travel, the beauty of the scenery and the countryside and the things which make up that the picture that people have in their mind. But
what was the thing that stood out for you, Wayne? What was the main things, 2 or 3 things that stood out for you?
Well, historically, the history was there. You know, you couldn't help but go to the numerous forts and palaces and like, and you could see that there was a length of history, and in that length of history, there's obviously a quality of knowledge and understanding, because architecture, the history, the arts, the music, it's all there. So, and the country itself is a wealth, and that had been passed down as most cultures are verbally from, and was still there. But the catch up, the size of the country obviously is there. The number of people that are forming part of the community. So the catch up of bringing that vast sections of the population along with them to give them the basics that the team go out to India to provide, just simple running water and the like. You've just got vast parts of the country who are dependent on that sort of input. Yeah. But in terms of welcome, you know that I enjoyed being the film star amongst us while we were there. It was just...
And he was mistaken for a famous wrestler many times.
Oh well, I sort of cultivated that, didn't I?
Yeah.
So, yeah,
anyway,
it was great in meeting up with lots of people who showed interest in me and Doran and the rest of us as the crew. It was really great.
I want you to go without sharing your stories of culture and diversity.
Okay, my own story, as opposed to my after history. But I'm a Caribbean born in Barbados. Formative years there, went to St. Philip's Boys School and all the rest, and came to Britain with that expectation that we all had about this land of milk and honey, and it was going to be great. And arrived here in the middle of the worst winter for however many years, the winter of '62. So I cried every day I went to school, cried there, cried all the way back. But went through the experiences of any person's culture in the '60s and '70s. The humiliation of having people constantly want to put their hands in your hair and sort of, you know, ask all the stupid questions. Well, it's naivete, but you look back and you appreciate that was just part of people actually treating you different because they could, and all the rest of it. So, frustration of fighting at secondary school because of being called a nignog and all the stuff that went on, people not sitting next to you on buses.
No. Today's about positivity, Wayne.
Oh, you want positivity? Oh, sorry.
Today is about the positivity of your culture, the positivity of your experiences. Although today's less South Asian Heritage Month, I still want you to talk about how richness of your diversity in your culture. Even being a Brummie and a bloody Baggies fan, you could celebrate that, but not anything negative.
Okay, forget the negative. We've all got family, haven't we? So, you know, the thing that held us together as migrants was that thing of family. So my father's younger sister had come to the UK before them, and got a house, and then my father and his brother came. So there was this massive family of probably an extended family when we arrived, of probably 20-something people sharing a 3-story house in in Handsworth, and that was absolutely fantastic. We had all the parties and everybody come and visit and so on. So you had no sense of you know, being totally lost, because you always had family there. And
okay, I mean that'll do. I'm looking for a core lesson from everyone. From Wayne, we're getting the core lesson of culture, diversity is about family. You didn't hear him once talk about how poor they were, how the windows filled up with frost and snow, how cold he was at night. He talked about the positivity of family, large family living in a small 3-bedroom house. And these are the stories that we should be sharing with our children. Dennis, continue your story around moving from the water wells, and talk about the water well story, where you thought as a British brought up Christian that you could go to India and fit a water well in a day. What was the actual experience?
Well, it's difficult to explain that, because we know the culture of India and we know the situation that exists within the village. But obviously, when you look at people who go to get water from the well, and there's nothing in there, and it's full of all sorts of crap, really. That was the reason why we decided to do some water pumps out there, so that they got clean water come all year round. Now, I know that they own government put the water pumps in, but they don't dig deep enough for that. They drill about 100 foot, and then it comes the summer, it dries up. But what pleased me most of all was, even though we put 6 water pumps in there, so we went over it last year to make sure that they were all still working. But when we got to this one, it was still working after we put that in 2011, and it's still working. See, baby, yeah, and it's still working. So the only extra thing that they did, all right, bye, there we go, was they put. So
Dennis, just to reconfirm the strategy of AFSA, the water well idea is still there. We raise money every year. If any of you want to build a water well in your country of heritage, they cost now about £750, and each water well, each clean drinking source, saves 500 lives a year. That's why Dennis got involved in that project, because we had a clear strategy that what he would do. For £500, 500 lives a year, every year that it was working. So Dennis, now move on to how you came about doing the charity work on first aid. What motivated that, and how have you done that?
I know what it is like. The financial to support themselves if they need to be taken to hospital. So one of the things I talk about is self-first aid. So that gives them some support so they can get to hospitals themselves, because they don't have an ambulance service in the villages. Like 15 years of age from choking, there was no need for it in this day and age. So we've actually trained them how to deal with these scenarios, including cardiac arrest, choking, fits, diabetes. So we've got a number of avenues we cover for them. Each one of us picks a subject, and we deliver the subject to the schools, the villages, and so on. And I know we've had some good results from there as well, because we have had feedback from some of the schools who said they've actually used it on a couple of occasions.
Tell us about the feedback. Tell us about the positive use. I mean, while you're thinking about that, you know that I tell the story about myself and Jagtar Mali going to Amritsar, and Jagtar Mali recognizing one of the Sevadars there, one of the volunteers. He said, I think I taught him first aid. And I went over to him and I said, stay there, and asked him. And he recalled the story of you guys teaching him first aid, and in particular the 3-handed lift, and how quite a large woman had fallen, broken her leg, and they had to carry her using the 3-handed lift to the ambulance. So they are, you know, even if we save one life from all the work you and your team do, we have done our bit. Again, back to the AFSA pledge. If you can do one thing, let's do that one thing and do it well. Carry on, Dennis, with your story about the schools and the positive feedback.
The schools actually have used the training that we've in Jamshedpur when they've had incidents, so that the children that were trained in first aid was able to administer it until such time and a teacher and adult enough to take up from there. So the system is working. The only thing that I find is that they have inadequate first aid equipment. And I'm talking about simple things like bandages and triangular bandages and stuff like that. So that's our next step, to see what we can do, try and put that right. So
I think Dennis will
plan.
stick on that point, because that's a real good point to finish on. So one of the things we're going to pick up from today is what can we all collectively do about supporting Dennis. Of course, we can support Dennis with the fundraising. Of course, we can do the charity walk for the fundraising. But what can we do about getting first aid boxes for Dennis in the schools? Fazana, over to you now.
Hi.
The same question to you. Tell us about you, your role, your service. Tell us about your background, your family's background, and your pride of South Asian heritage.
Okay, my name is Fazana. I work for Cambridgeshire Fire and Rescue Service. I'm a positive action officer. I've been with the service for just over 2.5 years. So I've done lots of work with recruitment and working as a positive action officer, trying to look at ways of how we can encourage diversity within our service. Like most other places like myself, we don't have as much diversity as we'd hope in our service. So we're doing lots of work at the moment around engaging with communities and offering easier access so people can come and apply and work for us. So that's the role I'm doing at the moment. In terms of my background, I'm obviously from Pakistan. My parents came over to the country mid-60s. I was born in this country in Peterborough, so I'm a pure Peterboroughan. I'm very proud of my heritage. I always love to go back to Pakistan. My parents lived in Jhelum, which is the north of Punjab in Pakistan. I don't know really much about the geography of Pakistan, but I do always go back every year with my children, my husband. I remember my childhood as very happy. It was a good childhood, very positive. There wasn't as much diversity in Peterborough. I can only remember people from probably the Caribbean, African, and some Indian families and Italians that live near us. It was a very friendly, open street. And yes, you did feel different, but at the same time, you felt you were at home. So I think when I look back, I think I've learnt loads. I've learnt to kind of pick the best out of both cultures to try to fit in comfortably in this country. And my children are also, obviously they're born here and they still love their heritage. They like to go back to Pakistan. They all speak some Punjabi, and I've kind of banged on about them not forgetting that language. My youngest two struggle a little bit, and I think that's confidence and being shy. But my oldest fluently speak Punjabi, and they love the language. So in terms of being proud of my culture, I am very proud that I come from a culture that's very family orientated, looking after each other, looking after the elders, the respect element. And I still remember us not even turning our back towards her, because that's what we were taught to do. You do not put your back towards an elder. You always stand up when an elder comes to your room. And my children still do some of those things. And, you know, having that respect. I think some of the things that have changed at the moment with communities, obviously we've moved away a little bit from the main Asian community. And I think communities still are there for each other. But I think we've become a bit more, I say a bit more British, if I can say that, where we are kind of involved in our own children, within our own family setups, and we don't have time really to kind of be around more people in the community if we could. But I know if something happens in my community, we all stick together. So those are some of the things that I think I've been thinking about. Is there anything particular you'd like me to share, Jack?
Your disappointment in some of the assimilation of values is something that myself and Wayne felt 30 odd years ago. I had never seen a elderly home with Asian elderly in it. Never. Until 30 years ago, and I walked into one in Handsworth, and both me and Wayne were embraced by the African Caribbean parents, the Asian parents, and every time we went there to do community safety work, they'd give us a cup of tea, they wouldn't let us go. I think that is an aspect of modern living, as well as loss of values, where both parents have to go out to work. There's no time for the elderly, no time for the youngsters, which is what Raji and the others have all been talking about their rich family values, how they were brought up. This is something that we must keep hold of going forward. So what my question to you, but what else do you want to know from you is, you go back to Pakistan every year. What is it that's so great about Pakistan that takes you back every year?
I think it's knowing. I think it's another sense of belonging for me. So I know my parents were from there, and I've got this link there that I need to go back. So my husband's family, obviously they all live up there. I've got some family from my father's side that are still there. And I have got this kind of connection that I have to go back. And when I do go back, it's warmth you feel, and it's the sense of belonging. Although I want to get back as soon as I can. Once I've been there for a few weeks, I need to get back home. But I always want to go there, and I.
No, but I'm looking for what
to go back. And the same
I'm looking
for my children.
Okay, I'm looking for the answer I got from one of my consultant psychiatrists last week, and she goes back every year, and she says she misses the Golgappe, and she just as soon as she lands, she has them. And I said to her, I'm the opposite. I look forward to the Golgappe in India, but no way am I going to eat any on day one. I save it to the last day in case they affect my stomach. So what about you? What is it that you're really aching for when you get into Pakistan?
It's got to be my small sajad, I think. I think I've got to go back for that. And I think the homemade, because where we live, it's kind of near a village area. So you get your homegrown food. We've got the river that's not too far. It's all fresh. We've got our own house up there that we've made a few years ago. So we've got our own space. You know, everything's homegrown and it's fresh. And I don't like lentils in this country, but when I go back there, I just want my lentils and my vegetables. I don't really eat meat there. And I don't know why that is. I think it's just the taste. And I think it's, like I said before, it's not losing sight of your roots and where you came from. And I think that's really important for me. And my children know that because they also love going. They wouldn't ever stay there for that long. They want to be back like me. But they always do enjoy going back, and they're ready for the next holiday. And obviously we were supposed to go again this year, and we cancelled our holiday.
Food is a wonderful thing you mentioned. I see Wayne's still here, but Wayne will remember another one of our colleagues from West Midlands, Carl Smith. Now, Carl Smith is a vegetarian, but when he goes back to Jamaica, he will have the meat off the farm because he knows where it's come from, and that's something special about home and trusting the food that you get.
Yeah, and I think also as well, it's the people you see, because my parents were from Pakistan. So when I go back, somebody will know my parents from somewhere. My parents have passed away now a few years ago, but when I go back, somebody will know my parents or a family member, and I want to hear the stories. I want to know about the history. I want to know about the war. I want to know what happened, partition time. All of those stories are so interesting and special to me. So whenever I go back, I will, chances are I will be sitting chatting with somebody trying to find out about history.
I'm going to open
so those
up,
are really important.
I'm going to open up to other people to ask. I'm going to ask a question. And just come in with one or two liners and unmute yourselves. Is Independence Day for Pakistan, Independence Day for India, something to celebrate? Or is it something just to remember and note? Where do you feel?
I think that, I'll be honest with you, I don't celebrate it not because it's not a celebration, but more so it's about remembering where the history started from. For me, it's about those stories. So we won't go out and pull the flags out and do all of that because I don't think I need to do that. And at the end of the day, what history am I sharing with anybody apart from the flag or making a noise or, celebration like that? So I think for me, a celebration is knowing about my history and where that history is and who actually started these conversations about having Pakistan and about India. So my celebration, I say, would be about knowing the history and my children to know the history because they love their country here and they love the country there as well. So they've got a bit of both and they can celebrate that in a way of accepting the history and getting to know more about it. That's my view on it.
So Rajiv, what do you think about Independence Day for India? How do you note it or celebrate it?
We don't celebrate as such, like as Fazana already said, we don't pull the flag and we don't go out shouting it's Independence Day. We do wish each other happy Independence Day, but the main thing is we try to, as she's already said, we try to remember what this day is. So I can teach my kids why do people celebrate this? Is this something that they should continue, or what do they feel about it. But before they can decide, they need to know the history about it. So that's the main focus for me, just teaching the history of what Independence Day is.
Absolutely. I think particularly for Punjabis, Independence Day is a bittersweet day. It's a day where those that fought for independence got independence. But what they didn't expect was India to be divided into 3 countries eventually, but 2 at the time. What they didn't expect was Punjab to be cut up into various portions and people divided, and nobody expected the atrocities that happened following partition itself. So it's a bittersweet day for most people. Benji, your background, your culture, your pride.
Yeah, sure. In a nutshell, really, both sets of great grandparents were Welsh born and bred. Unfortunately, all sets of grandparents died when I was quite young, so unfortunately I didn't get to learn the language. Had they been alive, they didn't speak English in the house. One granddad did speak English, but literally it was quite little. So really, I didn't get a grip really of the true sort of ins and outs of the Welsh culture as I would like to have. Really, I lived in England all my life, just on the other side of the border.
Sorry, Benji, I didn't ask you to introduce yourself. There's people on here who don't know where you work and your role.
Sorry, Jag. Of course, yeah, I'm Benji Evans, the Quality Diversity Lead at Cheshire Fire Service. And so, is that okay, Jag?
Yeah, your culture, your background.
Sure. So in terms of, so that's my in terms of my own sort of culture. My family did save up for 2 years in the 60s and migrated to Australia, and very quickly realised they were sort of lost really, and they saved up for a few years and came back. So I was always fascinated by the stories about, they're only in Australia for 3 years. So I landed a job in 2008 working in Warwickshire as a BME Sport and Active Recreation Officer. It was the first funded project working with BME communities in England, the first project over a 2-year period, funded by Sport England. So I was fascinated, coming from a mining community, 100% white, 99% people Christian, so very narrow in terms of my upbringing, my exposure to the community. So we're going down into Warwickshire. It was really interesting, in my 20s, going to the daycare centres, going to the Gurdwara, going to the West Indian Association, listening to all the stories of people migrating across to the UK. Various stories where one family from the Caribbean, they came across to the UK and they spent a couple of years here. They didn't feel like they felt out of place, so they saved up and went home. They went back to the village that they came from, and they felt like an outsider in their own village. They said that after 3 years, they came back to the UK. So I was really interested in those stories where people have migrated to the UK, and having listened to my own family's experiences as they go into Australia. So always fascinated about how people settle and how people get together as well. Lots of people, Mo mentioned in the chat before about how people from different backgrounds, from different cultures and countries have migrated, have the similar experiences.
Super.
Very interesting.
Okay, so we get to the summary points quickly. We've got 3 people. Sergey may not be able to speak. He's been a colleague of mine that joined us earlier, so if he's able to speak, he will do. So Chloe, Laura, and then that hopefully leads us to the last word if Sergey's able to speak. So Chloe and then Laura.
Thank you, Jack. I've really enjoyed listening today. My heritage is that I was born here. However, my family are from Barbados and Jamaica. I've really actually enjoyed just listening to people's experiences, and also in terms of, the different culture, the differences, and in terms of there's a lot of similarities, I feel. And it's just the sense of always feeling welcomed and belonging. I think it's really important that we don't lose the fact of diversity and culture enriches everybody's life, and there's always something to learn from others. So I'm really thankful to be able to be here today.
Laura, over to you.
Pretty much as Chloe, really. It's been a real privilege, really, to listen to everybody talking about their different cultures and the similarities as well as the differences. And I think it's, you know, that we can learn a lot from one another. And when I first went to my first AFSA event back in January up in Penrith, I had never been made to feel so welcome by a group of strangers. And I think that's coming through everything you're saying today. As a white person going into a room with people from Asian cultures and BAME communities, I really felt so welcomed, and I feel a privilege to be part of it.
Excellent. So it just remains me to really close the event. It's pouring down with rain outside. I'm in my little gazebo. If you can hear the pitter-patter, it's rain. But what more can I say that Chloe and Laura haven't said? I hope you've got a feel of a sense of community of Asian Fire Service Association, a sense of how we work, how we support each other, and look forward to seeing some of you tonight with your family members to talk to and listen to Janni Singh. And some of you will, after he's left, will do a bit of a summary about what we talked about today as well in this conversation. So thank you very much. Thank you for sticking out the full 90 minutes. And Chloe will also know that we did some good events with Bedfordshire Fire Service around Black Lives Matter as well, which went really, really well. And we haven't got to the end of that yet. The fire services that are doing great work on Black Lives Matter will reap the rewards in the future, because having an open culture of listening to staff and being willing to act upon that listening is really critical for the future. We've learned a lot about inequality over the last 3 to 4 months. You know, Black Lives Matter and COVID-19 have taught us, if you do not respect culture, if you do not respect difference, you will definitely have adverse impacts upon those that are most at risk. So let's keep talking, keep nudging, keep supporting our communities to reach longer, happier, healthier lives.